speaking up, you have to advocate for yourself. Like closed mouths get fed scraps. Eventually, you're going to be so hungry that you're going to pick up everything that's left. But if you know what you want and you go in with confidence and you're going to make those people who are going to put their name on the line for you look good, you're going to get everything you want.
This podcast is brought to you by Podcast Engineers. Podcast Engineers is one of the easiest ways to get your podcast edited and managed in a simple and sequential process. Hello and welcome to the Hustle Over Everything podcast. It's a podcast where we receive stories, tips, and tactics with entrepreneurs who have done it. Today I'm in the building with Toks Ayinla.
Hello.
How you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
It's good to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
For people who don't know you, could you give them a 1-minute summation of who you are and what you do?
Sure. My name is Toks Ayinla. I am an author, speaker, and strategist who gives information, tips, and strategies on business relationships and personal development. And that's my book, Through My Brown Eyes, which is, as of today that we're recording,
She brought us
3
a
years
copy,
old.
everyone.
Yes.
It's legit. It's like a book. You know, her name is on it. There's even she even self-published it.
Yes.
Toks Inc.
Yes.
That's a fire incorporated name, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah.
Very short and sweet. You see at the back? Toks Inc. That's dope.
I like it.
Thank you.
Yes.
So let's talk about this. One thing I guess we all do is read. You know, I'm an audiobook kind of guy myself, but what are 2 to 3 books that you highly recommend our audience check out?
Oh my gosh. Atomic Habits.
James Clear.
Yes.
Let's go.
I have that one.
I love Atomic Habits. What's another one that I think is important? The War of Art. Not The Art of War. The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield.
Okay.
It's an amazing book. It helps artists and just people creating in general really get over resistance and all of that. That's one book that I'd say everybody should read. And can I plug my own? I'd say you should read through.
Absolutely.
I'd say you should read Through My Brown Eyes, even if you're not really a poetry person. The way I write poetry, or I aim to write poetry, is that it's digestible. You don't need a PhD. You don't need to like Shakespeare. You'll find it digestible, but also deep while keeping it not too long. So I think it's a good intro into poetry while discussing heavy topics in a palatable and digestible way.
Most definitely. Oh, and what about you, bro? What you got?
My top 3 books.
Yeah, suggestions.
My top 3 suggestions. Honestly, the book that changed my life, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. I've read that book. I read that book in grade 10, and I bought 2 copies. I bought the classic edition, and I also bought the watered down edition. The first version I read was a watered down edition, but then I bought the classic text, which was like not really filtered out. I have that book upstairs. I've read it over 100 times. And the best thing about it is like you can always go back and read each chapter. Like my favorite chapter is faith, like ultimate test of like success is like you need to have faith in anything that you do. And the thing is like when you go back and read it over and over, you actually see some things that you missed before. Yeah. So that's one of my favorite things about that book. Second is Mastery by David Green. Robert Greene. He wrote like 48 Laws of Power.
Okay.
And lastly, I would say The Way of the Wolf by Jordan Belfort. He's like the Wolf of Wall Street.
Okay.
So he wrote this book about sales and like how you can like actually close any business deal. And he used like a method called the straight line method. And like each path towards a sale is like you gotta like get a 10 out of 10 certainty on like trust, if they know about the product, if they like your company. So you can't move on to the next thing until you make sure your prospect is at a 10 out of 10 on these different scales.
Oh, wow.
So it's a really good method of like how to like take someone from cold to warm to hot to closing them.
To signing that check.
Exactly. And also it's actually applicable in relationships too. And I know we're going to talk about relationships later, but how to really like talk to someone, tell them about your service, what you do, and like book a meeting and etc. So it's really fun.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right,
Alex Witter, you?
I had to look up my books because it's been a minute, and I listen to them audibly through not Audible but Libby, you know, which is plus and minus.
Yeah.
You know,
I was going to ask you, man, like, don't you think like listen to an audiobook is like listen to a podcast?
it's very similar.
It's very similar.
When it's done by the actual author.
Yeah.
But when it's not, it feels like it's like a mix. It's like a middle ground, a gray area between podcast and book.
Okay.
Yeah. But honestly, one day we got to put out
I got to put an audiobook. Oh, like us, we got to do it. Or
hell yeah, bro.
Of course.
Hell yeah. You know, would you be down? Do you listen to audiobooks?
No, I'm a book snob. I love hardcover books.
Really?
Oh yeah.
I'm a book snob. I love to be able to highlight, touch the paper, flip it, all of that stuff. Maybe audio would be good if I'm like flying or traveling, but I don't know what it is. I love to have the hard copy.
I just don't think of it as like actual reading a book. You know, when I think about reading a book, I'm taking like Toks' book here and I'm opening to page 113 and I'm reading it. But like actually take like an audio, I'm like, that's like fake reading to me.
Not fake
reading.
Fake reading.
Wow.
Shots fired.
It's like, it's not to you. I'm just to me. I
know.
The art of reading a book. It's like actually sitting there with like maybe like a hot beverage or like a coffee shop and you're reading a book. You know, that's to me, it's old school. But this new school stuff.
All this new school stuff. Owen is the pops of the podcast.
Yeah.
He calls me pops.
I call him old school.
Traditionalist.
You know what I'm saying?
Very traditional. You know?
So for me, I like books because I like to read them. Like for me, I'm a weird guy. I like to go to the beach or to the lake and just sit down and listen to something. You know what I'm saying? So I listen to a podcast, I listen to an audiobook. Some of the books I'm listening to right now, I already finished Hustle Harder by 50. I read Rick Ross's book and it is absolute ass.
Ashley?
When you said absolute, I thought you were going.
I thought you were going to like hype
Absolute
it up. Be like,
facts.
I know. I had to take you a bit into
Cover,
it.
yeah.
And I love Rick Ross.
Same.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Same.
like my actual, like my iPhone cover is a Rick Ross quote. You know what I'm saying? Like, I love Rick Ross, but that book, cause it's audited, it's read by somebody else. And 50 Cent, and wow, Rick Ross is quoting his own raps in the book. So if it was Rick Ross talking, it would be hard.
It would be so
because you can hear like his voice, like lemon pepper. You know what I'm saying? You can be able to hear that, but like because it's somebody else trying to say lemon pepper, you're like, fam, like
It's not working.
get that out of here. You know what I'm saying? So Hustle Harder by 50 is good. I like a negotiation book, Never Split the Difference, by Christopher. What's his last name? Let me get that right here. Christopher Voss.
Yeah, Chris Voss.
That's good because he's like an FBI negotiator, and then like has all types of tactics that he uses. Like he'll say like, if I'm gonna say something, I'm gonna use my radio voice to like negotiate and be like, how could you expect me to do that? You know, like things like that that help.
Yeah,
you,
I know that chapter because I'm like kind of halfway the book on my Kindle.
Yeah,
and it's just like
Kindle.
Yeah, Kindle. Like no. Like listen,
the old school man has a Kindle.
It's better than listening to audio. At least I'm holding something.
Facts. I'll give you a little bit of grace on that.
Yes.
But it ain't all the way, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You're still like a little bit.
I'm still
technology
kind of like, I'm faking the funk.
I'm
faking the funk. I'm faking the funk. But yeah, it's dope, man. Like he's like, yo, if you're stuck in a project and like someone's giving you a hard time, like there's this tactic where it's like you kind of insinuate asking for help, or like if they're asking for like dead demands, you're like, this sounds unreasonable, but they don't even know they're asking for unreasonable demands. You're like, how do you expect me to do that? And then give them the chance to answer.
Throw it back in their
And then
court.
once they say it, they're like, actually, you know what? Let's actually scrap that and actually go through this thing, you know? So it's something like that.
And they feel like they have the control because they're making the decision to scrap it. But you led them to...
Led them to it.
Yeah, that's smart.
Exactly, word. So that was a big one. And I'm pissed because like on Libby, you have to like borrow it. So I was listening to a midway, the thing this returns, and I'm like, excuse me? Excuse me? Midway through, I'm like, yo, where's my book?
Taken under your feet.
Where's my book? You know, anyways, the next one is Sell Like Crazy. This one's by an Australian gentleman by the name of Sabri Subi. He has a digital marketing agency, one of the fastest growing ones in Australia. And he walks people through how to sell like crazy online.
Yeah.
Which is very interesting. Basically, he really goes into the power of the lead magnet. Are you familiar with what lead magnets are? Yeah, exactly. So I highly suggest it to anybody listening. Sell Like Crazy is really good. If you're new to digital marketing, I want to get into it, I highly suggest it. There's no audiobook for this one. This is actually a physical book that I have, by the way. Not a Kindle.
Is it hardcover?
No, it's not hardcover.
Okay.
Soft cover. But I have the physical copy though. But yeah, let's get into you though, yo. So
Get into Toks.
Yeah, most definitely. So where should we start off? We could start off with should we start off with debt? Now, let's start off with where you're from, first off.
Exactly. Who are you? Like, where'd you grow up?
Where are
Yeah.
you from? What's your background?
Okay, so I'm Nigerian Canadian.
A Niger woman.
Yes, a Yoruba queen.
Were you born there?
No, I was born in Canada, but I speak Yoruba very fluently.
Your parents like drilled it in you from young.
Yeah.
Like, you couldn't escape that.
Yeah, my parents actually made a rule, my dad, that anyone who spoke Yoruba was not allowed to speak English to us when they came to our house, because you live in Canada, you'll learn English. It was so intense that my sister was in ESL for a few months when she started kindergarten because she could not speak English at all.
Wow.
Yeah, so
I'm jealous of that. Can I just say that? Because I'm Jamaican and I can barely speak a lick of patois. You know what I'm saying? Like barely anything. And I'm the one in the family that's like, really? You can't speak anything? You know what I'm saying? So I'm jealous of that. I think that's the one thing that your parents really did well.
Yeah.
You know? And you're from Brampton, is it?
I grew up on Weston and Lawrence.
Okay, so you're from like the North York area.
Yes.
Then moved to Brampton.
Yeah, when I was 13 for high school, we moved to the suburbs, and I've been there since.
Got you. Brampton gets a lot of hate.
Yeah, unfortunately.
I always defend Brampton on the pod. I love Brampton, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I love the burbs. I love the burbs.
Me too. There's something about it.
Yeah. It's very charming.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I like to be able to come downtown, experience the
Have your
traffic,
fun.
the noise, and then go somewhere quiet
Go
to
to
lay my
serenity.
head. Yes, exactly.
Listen, Etobicoke is that perfect blend.
I think so too. In
You know what I'm saying?
Mississauga, certain
It's like a
parts of
city
it.
within like the burbs.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Etobicoke, like that's one place like I really enjoy, especially by the lake.
Chef's kiss.
You know what I'm saying? Most definitely. All right. So you're from, North York and moved to Brampton as a youth. What are some of the things you got into? Some of your passions and stuff like that.
My passions, I'd say poetry's always been a big passion of mine. When I was 8 years old, I wanted to work for Hallmark so badly. That was my dream. I have, I believe it might be somewhere in the basement, but I have a notebook called Hallmark Poetry, and I would write like super rhymey poetry, like, that ABAB rhyme style of different topics. I'm like, I'm gonna work for Hallmark. And I loved sports, music, all of that kind of stuff, and really helping people. I initially wanted to be a child psychologist if I didn't work for Hallmark. Yeah.
Got you. And like you're doing all this poetry stuff, get to Hallmark. Was that like your only dream, or did you have any other like ambitions apart, writing poetry?
As a young kid, I'd say that in psychology. As I got older, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just, at one point I wanted to work on Bay Street so badly. I was like, oh my gosh, there's something about the allure of saying you work on Bay Street. I did it, not all that, but like that was another thing. When I look back, I think I just wanted control and freedom of etc. I could change the liberty to be able to change my mind whenever I wanted to and just follow my passions, because I'm quite a passionate person.
I can tell.
Yeah,
You're very passionate about a lot of things.
I love a lot. Yeah, I love a lot of things. And the freedom to navigate between them, I think, is why ultimately entrepreneurship is Bay. Is the GOAT.
So let's like fast track to like, your high school, like now like you're in your adult life. Like talk to us about like going to uni and then getting into your career, because I think this is where a lot of things started for you. So take us back to that point and then leading up to your career. Okay.
So I thought I wanted to be a child psychologist. So I did psychology as my undergrad, and then third year psych, a friend of mine tells me, if you don't do your master's in psych, you might as well just have like a high school diploma. And I'm like, what on earth? So in my third year, I added a second major in economics because I'm like, I'll be able to do something with this. So that I ended up doing 5 years undergrad. Right after, I was like, maybe I want to go to law school. And one of my cousins actually was like, maybe before you jump into that, see if you're sure. So I did a certificate in public administration and public law, came out of that, started working for an RESP company, and then
what's that?
Registered Education Savings Plan. So for little kids to set up their future to go to school. And I got fired from that job. And literally a week later, while still on severance, I got my job in wealth management with BMO on Bay Street. So I lived my Bay Street dream. Yeah.
Amazing. What's your relationship with money like?
Now? Or before?
Let's talk about then,
Money overwhelmed me. Money scared me. I don't think I felt comfortable with money, hence why it never really stuck around for me. I went into quite a bit of debt, $30,000 by the end of like 2019, beginning of 2020, for multiple reasons, bad spending, as well as quitting my job in wealth management on purpose and passion and no savings. But money was really tough for me. I think there was a lot of shame associated with spending and not being able to talk or ask for advice. And I also think having immigrant parents who were really in the hustle phase, I didn't necessarily gain all of the money knowledge at a younger age. It was more so like, don't get a credit card because if you do, you'll go into debt.
Same.
No content or context as to why and how to responsibly spend, more so fear mongering. And when you start to test the gangster of the things your parents told you not to do, you end up on the deep end real quick. And I think that's where I ended up.
So before you went into the $30,000 with the debt, you quit your job.
Yes.
Why'd you do that?
Oh my gosh. I was unfulfilled and unhappy, and also just ultimately being pulled in another direction. I was working in wealth management. I was like an assistant. I was getting my certification so I could start trading, hopefully, and probably get paid more. I was getting paid $33,000 a year, commuting 2 hours each way, spending $300 and something a month on commuting. And it was the pits, the whole Bay Street allure of walking around and looking nice in a suit. It was, to me, it was just a facade for myself, and I'd say even a lot of people, because you look good in the suits, but the work you're doing and the money you're making sometimes doesn't equate to what you look like on the outside. So I quit in 2019 in February. Prior to that, in 2018, December, my manager pulls me into the office and she's like, oh, it's time for your raise. I had to speak to the higher ups about this, so don't tell anyone. I'm here calculating like zeros. And she gives me this sticky note, which I still have till this day. My bonus was, I believe, $2,700 and my raise was $2,300. So it moved me to $35,300. And
what?
Yes. And the way she was hyping it, I'm like,
it's like, it was like a 7% raise or something like that. Like, it's not even.
It's a tragedy.
It's a tragedy.
It's a tragedy.
Mind you, how old were you when this happened?
26.
26. So 33K, you're going up to 35,700. Looking back, did you know that, like, even starting at 33K, did you know that was like a low salary? Like, what made you take it and maybe not go for like maybe something more?
So the way wealth management works is that it's also commission based. So I was working for brokers or IAs, who are investment advisors, and they have their books like hundreds of $1 million assets under management. And when you're licensed to trade, so if I did my CSC part 1 and part 2 successfully and I can now trade, they can pay me commission. So their commission could bump me up by 40,000 or more, depending on like their books and how much performed. And what percentage. Some did like a monthly, a fixed rate where maybe they'll give you $800 extra every month, and some do a percentage. So maybe 0.75%, 1%. And that allure, if you stay long enough, is there. Yeah. But for me, I couldn't stay long enough to get to that. So that's what the justification is why you come in, because at the end of the day, you could be making 75, 80, 90,000. And if you start bringing in your own clients or your team really likes you, they can keep upping that as they see your value. Did
you see any success stories of people in your position get that 40, 50K?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it was
most
attainable.
People did. Yeah, most people, once you're licensed, right? And you work for a team with like a large portfolio, which the teams I worked for did have large portfolios, and I saw what the percentage would be like, but I just didn't find it worthy, you know?
Yeah, 33K. Like,
it's tragic.
That's mad, because like you're commuting there and back from Brampton. So how much is that a month in just commuting?
It was at the highest $320.
$320.
Because I would take the Brampton Transit, then I would get to Humber College based on where I lived, and I would take the TTC to Kipling Station, then hop on the GO train to Union Station, then jog to the office.
To Bay Street.
Yes, exactly. So 3 different transit systems, each charging their unique fees. Yeah. And it was like $900 bi-weekly is what I was getting.
Yeah.
So yeah, a cute chunk.
I always see those times like when you're commuting, it's like a perfect time for personal growth. Like, were you like reading on the train? What were you doing? Were you dreaming? Were you scheming out? Like, what was that mental state you're in back and forth every single day?
Sleeping. Yes. I was sleeping. I would literally, when I got on the longest bus, I knew how long it would take, and I would set an alarm that would vibrate in my hand for like 25 minutes. And then I just like lean my head and I'd sleep. And then when it starts vibrating, I'd look up and I'm like, oh, okay. A few more thoughts. I'm ready. Too exhausted to focus. Like 4-hour commuting turns an 8-hour day into a 12-hour day. You get home, you pack your lunch, you eat a little bit, and you're off to bed to do it again. I had no mental capacity. When I quit and I turned off my alarm and I slept in for like 3 days, the way my brain like charged up after that, I wrote like 25 poems in one day. Like my creativity was so dormant because I was way too exhausted that I didn't even realize how dormant it was until I finally got that rest. And I was like, life is great again. And I was just like thinking of so many things, so optimistic. Yeah. So all we did was sleep.
Yeah, I mean, I think that firing was a blessing in disguise.
Oh, no, the firing was from the job prior. The firing got me to this job. This is the one I quit. Yeah.
Got you.
Yes. But I did learn a lot here. I would say a lot of who I am now, my entrepreneurial skills and acumen were virtues of being in that space, right? Like I'm surrounded by money. I'm surrounded by our brokers make a lot of money. So the way they talk about money, their backgrounds, as well as our clients. And one thing that I noticed was that the richest clients we had, one thing they had in common is that they all worked for themselves. And I'm like, And when I quit, I actually told my bosses, I'm coming back as your client. I'm like, I gotta go, but like, I'm gonna be back as your client. And they threw me a party, so.
So they treated you good.
Yeah, they did. I worked for like really good teams that really liked me. They threw me a party and they wrote happy retirement. They got me like a retirement card that I was retiring from like the corporate world and all. But yeah, I knew I needed to get out of there because I can't let people who don't know my value just define it for me and decide what it is. She thought I would be happy with that raise. And her excitement just let me know that you can't be in charge of these decisions in my life. Because look what you think I should be ecstatic about. And that's an insult.
Even the way she's like making it look so secretive, like, don't tell them, like, I'm giving you this, I got you this, as if it's like, yo, you better be amped for this. And it's like crumbs. I
went to my desk and I calculated, I divided it by 26 weeks bi-weekly. And then I took away like maybe $15, $16 for like EI, pension, all of that. It was less than like $40 a paycheck or something like that, or like $38. And I'm like, she thought I should be happy about this. And I folded it up. I still have that sticky note because I'm about to very soon hit that whole annual salary in a month. And then very soon, keeping my fingers crossed and staying optimistic, I'm going to do it in one day, like make that whole salary. Then I'm going to show people like, this is what somebody said about me. And if I stayed there and let them do this to me over time, I wouldn't be where I am now.
Yo, cheers to that, yo. Dead ass. Toks. Congrats on all your success.
Thank
you. So far, more to come. Let me fill up your glass.
All right, well, watch the book.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can't ruin the book. You mind passing the stall?
Of course.
Boom, boom. You know what I was thinking as you brought that up? I don't even think she was actually trying to give you the raise as the money being the thing. I think what a lot of companies do sometimes is they'll give you the raise with the thinking of the praise being the raise.
Yeah.
And not the actual money. So to mentally, fuck you, to make you feel like, oh wow, I'm getting so much praise here.
Yeah.
That I should work harder. Even the money might not be the actual thing. I'll never forget, man. I was at Banana Republic and they gave me a 15-cent raise and they gave me a round of applause. Like, listen, he's been great. Give me a round of applause. Yay. And I'm like, are you kidding me? 15 cents? And it was this whole mentality that they were trying to bestow upon me, We're giving you a raise, so you should work harder, And that's the real difference.
Yeah.
I think is this the praise raise, not the actual money raise.
And sometimes the perception of power. When I used to work at Cineplex, I worked at the movie theaters, Colossus in Vaughan, while I was in my undergrad. Yeah, R.I.P. Colossus. Ain't Colossus no more. And I remember people would become team leaders and they'd pay you like 25 cents more, but they would give you a different shirt and a clipboard and the power trip on a quarter.
I know that. You know what happened? I have a similar story too. I used to work at Harvey's back in. I know that? Okay. Yo, man, I've worked everywhere. Like I've done lawn mowing. I was a barista. You know this. I worked fast food. I worked at Abercrombie, The Source. Where else have I worked, bro?
You just stuck with a job. You know?
Good Life Fitness.
Damn.
I've done street canvassing. Like I went through the school of hard knocks, Toks, you know, but long story short, I was working at Harvey's. It's grade 8. So I got hired with this guy called Zach. So Zach was like, he was like finished high school and I was going into high school at the time. So we're like working shifts. He's doing his thing. He's there like more hours than I am. So one day he gets promoted to team lead. And when you get promoted, you get a black shirt. So when you come into Harvey's, you'll see like the floor guys are wearing blue shirts and then the supervisors, managers, they all wear like black shirts. So he comes out to me. He's just like, "Hey, Owen, buddy, you know, I got a black shirt, eh?" And I'm like thinking, I'm like, bruh.
I can just imagine that was a great white guy. A great Caucasian. Mwah, chef's kiss.
Yeah, I just got a black shirt, eh? I'm like, yo, Zach, man, like toast up, bro. Like, that's amazing. At this time, grade 9, I'm like already thinking about a bigger future. Like,
yes.
I'm thinking, yeah, I want to be a businessman. I want to be an entrepreneur. I can't wait to get out of high school. I was ready to attack the world. So he gets his black shirt. He starts like bossing me around like at work. I'm like, bro, this is nothing. You don't even own this franchise. Like, what are you getting off of? So one day I got the biggest comeback on him and it was so unintentional. So my brother, he was living in Dubai at the moment. He comes back to Toronto and whenever like he comes to Toronto, like, you know, we go back home. I grew up in Sarnia, by the way.
Okay.
So we're there, like we're just chilling. We're driving around the city. My bro's like, let's go get some food. So I'm like, oh, let's go to Harvey's, you know, my old stomping ground. So I walk in there and this is like 5 years later. So this is my first year at Ryerson. I walk in there. I see, let's call him Kenny. Kenny's still there. And I go to the bathroom. My brother and sisters are like ordering food. As I turn around, I see he's taking their order. And to my surprise, I say, "Oh, Zach, you're still here?" I said that I'm like, in a way of like, just like, "Oh, bro, like, you know what I'm saying?" It's like, "Oh, you're still at whatever." But it was out of genuine like surprise. Mm-hmm. So we order our food, whatever. We get in the car. I'm driving back my fam back home. My brother looks at me, he's like, "Bruh, did you have to do him like that?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Dude, what are you talking about?" He's like, "Yo, the way you just asked him, like, 'Oh, Zach, you're still here?'" He's like, "Yo, that, like, I even felt it for him." Like, "Bro, was it that bad?" It's like, "Yo, just take in what you just said. Like, you're still here." Meaning like, you see Harvey's as this kind of job and you're kind of dissing. And I did not mean it like that, but I was kind of like, yo, you know what? This guy gave me hell back in the day, like working at Harvey's, like screw this guy. But I did feel bad, but I was like, you know what? I think we're even now. But that's the power trip I was talking about.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? The
that
guy,
black
like,
shirt, that
black shirt. I'm so glad
cap,
like I got it.
and
there.
a clipboard and a pen. My goodness. And oppression.
The thing is, when you work these jobs, you become part of the culture. Like, there's like Harveyers, you know, like they've been like there's like my sister
lifers.
Lifers, you know, my sister got Timmy's. They're like, yeah, this is like a Timmyers. You know what I'm saying? They talk about the gossip. They talk about like everything there. I'm just like, yo,
scary stuff. Getting that invested into a layover job will have you out there not getting on your next plane to your next destination. I had a friend at the RESP company that I worked at, and she was so intelligent and she had so much potential, and she had been there for like maybe 3 years. I was there for like maybe a year and a half before they fired me, but blessing in disguise. And I would tell, she wasn't making enough. And her boyfriend, they weren't making enough, and she was going to get another job on the weekend. And I'm like, all the skills you've learned here, why don't you go apply for another job so that you don't have to work the weekends? And she's like, but all of my friends are here. And I was heartbroken for her. I was gut-wrenched, because for you to literally pause your life and potential and take on a whole nother job to make ends meet because you're emotionally attached to a place that can't even provide enough for you to survive is dumb. It's just dumb and tragic in my opinion. And I'm like, if y'all gonna be my friends and I leave, you have my number, you have my IG. And if we're not going to be friends after this, then we were like circumstantial, situational friends. And all the best in your future endeavors as I walk out the door. But she was literally, she's still there till today. And I left that job in 2017.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah. This is why like, there's those jobs that say, yeah, we're family. Like, no, we're not a family. We're not.
I will never.
Because you do all this culture stuff, like your culture fit. But as soon as shit hits the fan, you're done.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, I thought we're family. Like, does family do that to another? Like,
Only
no,
when you serve their purpose.
exactly.
When the purpose is no longer aligned, they let you know that you're expendable. I have a friend who says, when I get a job and everyone else is bringing in a bunch of stuff or extra shoes or pictures, he's like, I don't bring nothing because I don't want to get comfy here. I don't want to ever forget that this is not my home and this is not somewhere that I need to be. I don't want to look at pictures of my family and feel comfy sitting in this chair too long or bring extra shoes and have like a change of clothes. No, nothing. Bare minimum. And if you all fire me, I'm going to take like 3 items. I don't even need a box. I'm like, I'm going to be out the door so quick.
Yo, there's this story about this Nike exec. She was talking about how she felt this pressure to go for after work drinks, you know, like to build team camaraderie. Like, yeah, let's go like get work drinks. And meanwhile, she has like a kid back home. She has a husband. She's got to cook dinner. But she feels like if I don't do this, my career is on the line. Like, I'm not seen as a team player. I'm not contributing to the family. And I think this is what makes like workplaces toxic.
Yeah.
It's crazy, you know, but you're out of that now.
Yes, I was in it still until September 2nd. I went back and got another 9 to 5 job.
Okay, nice.
Yes, for a year.
All right.
Strategically, though.
Strategically. Share more about that.
So when I became an entrepreneur, I had this like ego, I'd say, entrepreneurial ego of I'm never working for the man again. I'm going to be my own boss. Like, you know, rightfully so, because that freedom is sweet. But
the autonomy is amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I then had a friend and he was like, you should look for jobs. Like there might be a job that could help you like quicken the pace of where you want to get to. So I do coaching and I wanted to really get into executive coaching. So I took his advice and I applied for a bunch of roles at the same time. And I actually, in the span of 4 days, I got 3 job interviews for multiple jobs. And they were all paid well, substantially. And when I went, so I ended up taking the one that paid the least. And the one that paid the most was over $25,000 more a year than the one that I ended up taking. And when I went to the first interview for that job that I didn't end up taking, I got off the call and I told my mom, I'm like, not for me. Even though it was like benefits, great pay, great organization. There was another one in the middle that paid about $15,000 more than the one I ended up taking. Got off the interview. I was like, nope, not taking it. Ended up with the one that paid the least, but it was with CIBC. I was an inclusion facilitator and coach, and it was all executives. It was like the inclusive leadership pillar of their company. So I was working with board members, C-level execs, senior directors, and my VP was amazing because my role was net new. So I was like, y'all don't have a coaching component. Can we add that? I'm actually a coach. And he's like, sure. So everything that I wanted to do that would boost my entrepreneurial resume and also benefit them, I had the liberty to do that. And at the end of my contract, they asked me to renew and I decided that I could not because I had too much things going on, but I still work with them now as like a true contractor on an hourly base. And in the 1 year that I worked with them, prior to that, my highest hourly rate as a consultant was around $180 an hour. And in that 1 year, I've now been able to 1x it to about $1,000 an hour. So strategy. Yeah.
1x it? I mean 10x it.
Well, almost. Yeah. It was 180. So like 5.5. Yeah. So yeah, but going from 100 to 1,000 is
incredible.
Yes. And I could have, I'm not saying I wouldn't have gotten there, but that fast and with that type of social proof to justify it, not if I hadn't gone back and done that, I wouldn't get there. And it's like I was being paid well to learn what I would come out on the other side of and like benefit immediately. Like by the end of this year, I'm going to make back like all of the difference that I would have lost taking the lowest paying job versus the highest paying. Whereas if I was at any of those roles, I would not have been able to gain the skills that I have in this short period of time or even at all. So it's cool.
Yeah. So let's go back to leaving BMO because this is like where your entrepreneurial like really like, kicked up. What were your first steps that you were doing? And like, talk to us about that period of like actually venturing out.
Yes. So, many reasons why I left besides like being emotionally detached. And I would find myself writing poems and folding up papers into my purse all the time. And I'm like, I work with like money and SIM cards. I can't have people seeing that, oh, she folded a paper with information. Like, you know, it could be perceived very like risky, but in the process of, so when I decided I was going to quit in December, I told my parents, like, I'm gonna quit. And I also used to have a baking company called Treats by Toks, and I've been doing that since 2013.
Still running it?
I don't have as much time anymore. Yeah. So I just kind of bake for family and holidays and things. But like that time I was like taking a lot of orders, and I was like, okay, I'm going to quit. And my last day will be on the 8th of February. So I can like do a bunch of Valentine's orders and make some money because I don't have money. And then my father ended up passing away in January. Yes. And when he passed on the 16th of January, the bereavement I took literally ended. And I was back in the office on the day I had told them in December that I had told my family in December was going to be my last day. And because of the way the business works, quitting at that time is not the most ideal time because I'm kind of leaving my team high and dry. And I was already feeling nervous, like, oh, I don't want to screw these people over. Yeah. But then being able to be like, oh, my father passed and I'm going to leave, there was a lot of justification and grace for me to get out of there, you know? So when I left, I told my mom, like, okay, I'm going to write a book. I'm going to start a podcast because I knew I wanted to write the book, and that's perfect. Nigerian parents, you can't just be like, I'm trying to leave and be on Vibes. They're like, what is that? Never heard of her, not interested. So I said I would write my book. I wrote the book. It came out October 5th, 2019. So like today is 3 years. I started my Toks Talks podcast, and I just started feeling it out, just seeing what I was going to do. I really wanted to go to law school, as I said. And my mom was like, okay, well, how about the law school thing? And I'm like, okay, give me till the summer to do my own thing. I promise you in the summer, I'll study for the LSAT, take it one more time, apply for law school. And if I get in, I'm in. If I'm not, I'm not. I did my LSAT. I killed it. I got an interview with one of the law schools. A day later, they're like, oh, we didn't accept you. And I'm like, I tried.
Why didn't they accept you?
Because you're supposed to have 2 references, and usually one's supposed to be a professor. But I'm a mature student because I've been out of school since like 2015. And I asked a professor and he said he would do it, but something told me to get another reference. So I ended up with 3 references. When it was time for the professor to write the reference, he no longer replied my emails. So if I hadn't gotten that backup reference, my whole application would have been voided. So they were like, why don't you have a professor? And in my opinion, I don't think that should have even mattered, because as a mature student, everything I've done post-school should hold more weight than actually having a professor vouch for me when I was in school like 6 years ago.
You're like 21 or something.
Exactly, right? I'm like 26 at this point. I left school at 21. Why does that matter? So, but I think it was destiny, because clearly I don't think I'm going back.
You're not built for the law system program. That it's a lot of work.
I think I do the work well.
Yeah.
But the question my sister's husband actually asked me at the time was, when you get your law degree, do you want to practice law? And I'm like, I don't think so. He's like, then why do you want to go to law school? And I'm like, maybe it's the Nigerian lawyer, doctor, engineer trilogy or trinity that is stuck in my head, having me feel like I need
so
to.
Sexy saying I am in law school.
Lawyer. And like when your parents are like, my daughter, the lawyer. The lawyer.
He's an engineer.
Engineer. Exactly, right?
Especially when your cousins are home and everyone's like, all the parents, they do this for like other parents. They love flexing.
To make you a little trophy.
Where they're shiny objects. They're like, yo, check out mine.
Yes.
Like, no, check out mine. Mine's double that. And double means it's like double degrees, PhD, like everything, the whole lot.
Yes. But now, like, I remember when I decided not to take those other roles and I took the one I ended up with, and my mom was like, why? Because the one I ended up with didn't have like benefits, nothing. It's a contract role, whereas the rest are like permanent. And she didn't understand it. And then eventually she's like, we're at my aunt's house. She's like, oh, tell them how much that job that you turned down was. And I'm like, oh, so now it's now it's like she's believing in the vision, right? Yeah. And that's the importance of using yourself as the basis of your conviction, because waiting for people to tag on or to get it will have you wasting so much time, because they don't get it until the tangibles are present. But the tangibles don't get there until you do the needful and do all of the work behind the scenes, right? Like now, any decision I make, when I told her I was leaving this, she was just like, all for it, because I've proven that my grit and my resolve and my vision and my faith will like move me through anything. So she knows I'm good now.
Most definitely. Parents that come from immigrant countries, they just want to see their kids do well. They
want to feel safe when they go to bed. They're like, my kid is doing okay. Like she's got money or he's got money.
Exactly. So that's where the trilogy comes from, because overseas that everyone thinks engineer, doctor, lawyer, paid. You know what I'm saying? So as long as that's covered, of knowing that their child is going to be okay, you know, they can be at peace.
Yeah.
And once you said that to your mom, she's like, oh, my daughter can be at peace. You know, she'll be all right.
Exactly.
So now she can show that off. Like, my daughter, she'll be all right. She's good.
Yeah, she's
good out
doing
here.
real good. And I think coming as an immigrant and sacrificing everything to get to a place to give your kids a better life, you do not want them to have to struggle how you struggled. So when we decide to take the path less traveled, they see what they did, the path less traveled, and the struggles that came with that. And it's out of love, but I can't let your love coated in fear be the litmus test or the compass of the directions I take in my life.
Facts.
Because I wouldn't be here right now. Like now when I told her like my hourly that I can charge like anywhere from like 500 to 1,000 or more. And she's like, an hour? I'm like, plus HST because like I'm incorporated. And she's like looking at me like she can't even fully fathom the fact that someone would pay for a service that's 1,000 an hour, let alone to like, I guess me, right? But now that's the generational gap. And I'm glad that my little cousins and people coming behind me, they're not, if they want to take those risks, it's not a hypothetical that they'll have like pushback against. They can literally point to me and be like, oh, Auntie Toks did that, you know, and now they have somebody who has opened the doors for them to be able to do the same thing and take their risks.
You know what it is? It's like the mental paradigms like we're breaking.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just like, I think our parents, they saw making money, accumulating wealth through sticking through one job, climbing the ranks, maybe capping off like make $280K a year, 300 if you reach president. But they don't know like the abundance that exists right now, like $1,000 an hour, $2K a day, $10,000 a day. To people who are making that, it's like, oh yeah, that's nothing. You know what I mean? So it's like a different mental shift you have to be on to really like, first you have to decide that you're going to like make that money.
Yeah.
And then once you make that, it just becomes like you earning 100K a year. Like, oh yeah, I make like 10K a day now. Like that's nothing, right? It's like a different mental switch that I think we have to teach like our parents and the people who are going to come after. Luckily for us, we can teach our families in the future. Like this is the way to like make a living.
And the ceiling becomes the floor.
Yeah.
I never would have thought that I could get that. When I was getting the 180 an hour, I was stoked. I was like, I said that and they said yes. Crazy. And now I'm like, oh my gosh. So if I can ask for this and receive it, now this is my baseline.
Yeah.
What more can I ask for? How much more can I get? How can I prove that I'm deserving of it? And now I'm not even afraid. My voice doesn't shake when I ask for these amounts anymore. Whereas before I'd be like, oh my gosh, I feel like a robber. If they say yes to me, I feel like I stole from them because how on earth did I like finesse you to get this? But now I'm like, no, if people think you're worth this, it's because you are. And you need to like align the way you see yourself with the way people see you, because that dissonance will have you hesitating when you should be jumping and you'd end up missing out on more opportunities.
Yeah. 100% agree with you.
Yeah.
No, most definitely. One thing I also want to touch on real quick is the fact that we're talking about jobs. There's nothing wrong with getting a job. You know what I'm saying? I just wanted to throw that out there just in case anyone's thinking that, you know, we're pew-pewing getting a job.
No, I was at a job. I was working, a job got laid off and like everything. It happens, you know what I mean? But it doesn't mean like, yo, screw jobs, like da-da-da. No, I'm not. Like, it served me well, but I'm moving on to other things like what we're doing. But jobs are great. They can like, you can actually leverage those to build your wealth.
Most definitely. I'm not even saying I'm just saying overall, you know, jobs is something that, you know, that's the first investor, you know, it's a job a lot of the time, you know what I'm saying? But we didn't really touch deeply into the debt, you know, before we move on into your current job. I want to make sure we touch every point. So walk us through what happened with the debt. Could you go deeper there?
Yeah, of course. So when I quit, I was probably maybe like 4,000 or 5,000 in debt, maybe 7. I can't even remember. PTSD, you block out those
personal,
memories.
just like regular debt or student debt or
regular? My father worked at York University, so I paid no tuition. So yeah,
what a blessing.
Hence why I was a forever student bouncing around trying new things, because there was like no cost to it, right? Like free tuition until you're 25. So I could have literally kept going, but there was no need to for what I needed to do. So I left with that debt. I had like no income, no savings, because I'm literally getting paid pennies and spending more than I'm making, or just enough to maybe pay the interest down on the debt. But part of what I had decided was that I want this. I know what it's going to take. And if I go into debt to get this, I'm going to recoup it. It's not a worry.
What was this?
When I quit my job and was deciding that I was doing that with no savings, which I wouldn't suggest anybody to do.
Please.
It's not for the faint of heart. It took a lot of faith and conviction and confirmation for me to take that step. A lot of people would lose it, you know, like a lot of people would be overwhelmed checking your bank account and seeing that type of negative. It's terrifying, you know. And another thing, I couldn't tell anybody because I didn't need their fear influencing me and scaring me and forcing me to go back into like the workforce before I had seen what I was doing through, you know. So I started like investing in myself. I took this course by Marie Forleo called B School. I also took this other certificate because I knew I wanted to get more into coaching. I know I have a natural knack for it, but people also want credentials. So I went to University of Toronto's education school, and I took a certificate in solutions-focused brief therapy and counseling. That also cost a bit of money. Survival, high level, just spending, startup costs of a business, you know, like all of the incorporation, all of that good stuff, everything. And by the end of 2019, beginning of 2020, I was 30,000 in debt, and I was okay with it. Like,
hold on. That's something not adding up.
Why?
30,000 for this. Sorry. So how much was the course?
The course, one of the courses was like 4,000 US.
Okay.
Plus the other one was around like 3,000. Plus just living.
Which other one?
So the B School, which was the online course, and then my solutions focused brief therapy, my coaching course was another 2,000.
Focused brief therapy
and
What's
counseling.
That?
So solutions, it's a methodology of psychology and coaching or counseling. And usually with like therapy and counseling, you have to come multiple times. Like, so if you were to see a therapist, you have to come like at least 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 sessions before you see results. But the difference with brief therapy is that I might only see you once. So it's brief, and it's also solutions focused in that we don't have to go back into the past and potentially re-traumatize or trigger someone to get them to their solution. We focus on where are you currently, where are you trying to get to, and what can we do to get you to that place. So it's a cool methodology that I found interesting, and I decided to take a course in it so that when I say I'm a coach and I have coaching experience, it's not just, oh, I'm really good and people talk to me and people feel comfortable talking to me, but I actually have tangible evidence of completing this course and doing a certain amount of hours and things like that. So I was doing that, publishing my book, although I self-published and did all of that stuff. There was a lot of like upfront costs, like when I did a book launch, when I had to buy author's copies and things of that nature, even just the software required to like Adobe and stuff to create the cover pages and all of that stuff. And then just living in general, right? Affording life. So it rolled up an interest, on top of everything. I'm compounding interest on top of everything that I'm doing. Yes. So 30K.
I want to establish one thing. As you're doing this, are you living on your own? Or are you living at home?
I live at home. And I think that's also, thank you for bringing that up. Very important to note. That is a privilege. The fact that I could take this type of risk with no savings is because I don't pay rent.
Yeah.
I contribute to the house in other ways, but like a mortgage or rent, no. Like Nigerian culture, you really don't pay rent. Your parents cover that for you until like you get married and you move, or if you decide to move off on your own. So I didn't have that coming in and like sucking all the money, because that would have also been a factor in me being able to be like, you know what, I'm out of here, because I would get evicted, essentially.
So let me ask you this. Like, do you feel like your appetite for risk, the way you're taking, like you're spending that thing, if you're like living on your own, would you have approached it differently? Because with a lot of expenses, like to rent, traveling, but you're living at home. So like, okay, I got a place to stay. I got things to do. Food's going to be on the table. If you can put yourself in that position of like, you're independent, do you think you would have approached investing in yourself differently?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I would have decided to invest in myself while also actively working still. Although I was very exhausted and working 12 hours, well, essentially commuting and working 12 hours a day. On the weekends, I would have been like on it and maybe reallocating some of that money into like a lighter, slower investment, And that's the thing. Like, I'm not going to deny the fact that it was a huge part of the reason why I could be like, forget this. And even with that being said, though, there's a lot of people who do live at home who don't pay rent, who are like, I could never do what you did. That's terrifying. But I would have definitely had to have thought of survival. And even if it was a thing of me living by myself, but my parents still lived here, I could have decided, you know what, I'm not going to live by myself anymore. I'm going to move back home and do something like that. Because I think you can have everything you want, but maybe not all at the same time and at the same capacity.
Yeah.
You might want freedom, but do you want freedom more than you want to accomplish your goals? And will you take freedom and sacrifice the trajectory or the rate of your goals to get that, you know? Yeah.
That's crazy. Because like, when I first heard the 30K in debt story, I was like, damn, like I'm so excited to unpack this tonight. So at what point did you like stop and realize like, whoa, like this is getting out of hand. Let me actually slow down on the pace of spending. Like, did you not look at your account? Did you like just kind of like slap the credit card? What was like the plan behind it all to like pay it off?
My plan was that I'm going to start making money. And when I do, I'm going to be funneling it into it.
Yeah.
No, I'm going to funnel it into the debt. Like there was never a moment when I'm like, you've done too much. Like you need to stop. Like I wasn't going on vacations or doing anything like that. It was just the course, the B school course I took. It was an online course and it only comes out like, I think twice a year. And when it was coming out, my sister's husband was like, oh, you should take this course. It might help you because it has like marketing, SEO. It has a lot of the back end things that I personally lack. I just have the ideas, you know, we need the rest of it, right? How do we do the rest? And at the point when it was available to take it and I was looking at the cost and I was panicking like, oh my gosh, should I do this? And then I sat back and I said to myself, if you don't think that you will make this money back if you invest in this, then why are you trying to be an entrepreneur? Go get a job, pull out that resume, dust it off and go do it. And then I was like, okay. So then I applied for it. Then oddly enough, there's this school in Peel region that actually called me and they're like, we want you to come like do a book talk with our students. And then I was like, okay, well, here's my rate for a book talk. And then on top of that, I need you to purchase a copy of my book for every single one of the students who will be in the book talk. And in that one instance, I recouped all of the money that I used to pay for that, which is just like instant confirmation, right? And I think towards like the end of the years when I started making more money, like a few talks here, a few of this here and there. So it's like, I never had to be like, oh, I've reached the threshold. I can't spend another penny or I'm overspending senselessly. It just got to the opportunity or the situation where now I was making enough money to maybe throw $1,000 a month into the debt or maybe 500 or something like that instead of, or maybe throw barely anything into the debt, but not add more because I'm making enough now to cover the things I need to cover, like my phone bill and whatever my expenses are for the month. And I officially paid off the last bit on June 10th of this year. Wow. And that was like 7 days before my 30th birthday. So like I paid off the last like 1,800 and I was like, exhale. Like, this is great.
Yeah. Congrats to you again.
Thank you.
That's like, that takes a lot of courage.
Yeah.
To continue spending and believing in a vision and making it happen.
And I never told anyone about the debt, I'd say until probably March of this year. And like my sister was like, oh my God, 30,000. I'm like, it's almost done though. Like it's almost, cause I can't tell y'all this when your fear is going to influence me, you know, when you're in the seed phase and you don't have roots yet, you can't bring storms into your life that are going to throw you off or like uproot your vision. Like now I'm firmly rooted, like there's a trunk, all of that good stuff. Anything you say to me is not going to like knock me off my balance. So now I can be like, oh, let me share with you the struggles I was going through in silence. Because, you know, just for you to know, not for you. I don't need your help. I don't need anything. Cause also with like family and like my mom, she'll probably feel like, oh, I need to help her. Or she'll be nagging like, oh, hey, how's your money? How's your money? And I'm like, I don't want to talk about it. Yeah. So now they all know and they're like, damn. Like, yeah.
And I'm also curious too, like, so you come out of, you're making 33K, let's say 35,000 at the peak, coming out of the job. What was your credit limit, to go to the 30K?
Oh, I had like multiple credit cards.
You had multiple credit cards.
Yeah, I have really good credit. I've always kind of, I had like a boyfriend for quite a bit of time and, he didn't necessarily have the best credit. So he would like finance a lot of stuff under my name. which really built my credit. He paid it all. So like, yeah, shout out to him for that one thing. But like, yeah, he financed a lot of stuff like furniture for our whole house, things like that. So I had like really good credit.
You got points too?
Yeah.
Like credit card points?
Yes,
like,
exactly.
say, yeah.
But lots of these were like store finance cards, like, you know, the brick,
like a
Leon's, all of those kind of
Future
things.
Shop.
Yes,
exactly. Best Buy
exactly.
now.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of credit through that. So I had a few credit cards and then also lines of credit. So when like the debt was getting accumulated, I would bounce it around, which is also a way that I paid it down. I got a credit card that had like a balance transfer thing where you'd pay 2% to transfer your balance and then pay no interest for like a year. So then I would like pay that down. And then I had a really low interest line of credit. So I would move money into that and then pay it down from there. So the money was moving around to the path of least interest as much as possible. And then I was paying it down so that most of my money is going to capital and not interest for most of it.
Most definitely.
It's a gem.
Yeah, it's a gem.
Yes. Move it around.
Move that money around.
Yes. And pay off the highest interest for.
I was going to say robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Yeah, no, essentially, yeah. When like the credit card, the like pay no interest for a year one, if it was coming up and I had a little bit left, I would just use the line of credit to pay it off and then move the money to the line of credit, pay a little bit of a lower interest rate than like a credit card itself, but not as good as zero, and just keep moving it around until I got to the end.
Most definitely. Now, honestly, I think that's what the name of the podcast is going to be. You know, I quit my job with no savings. Here's what happened. Name of the podcast.
Right? The Wild West.
That's going to go viral.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think you brought up a great point here, like on how to like move around money. So how many credit cards did you have?
At that time, I had an RBC one, then a BMO one. Did I have a RBC BMO? I think 2 at that time. Yeah. Did
you have like an out plan of like, let's say an Excel sheet of like different things of like what you can do? Like because I think a lot of our audience, they might be in a similar position. It might not be 30K, but 15K. But what are some practical steps you can share with people to move money around to pay debt? Like simple stuff, like for example, in your position and whatever thing you did.
So I've never been an Excel person. And I'll say I have more gems now than I did in the midst of it.
Yes.
It was just kind of vibes. But
you're going with the flow.
Yes, I was just going with the flow and moving blind faith. Like I believe in walking off of the edges of cliffs and landing in purpose. And I think that's like the story of what I did. Not for everybody, but I'd say really figure out how much you owe. Like, look at all the numbers. It's like, cause at some points I would look at maybe my BMO account to go pay something and I'd see like, oh, 25,000 or like 18,000. And then I just close it. And then maybe when I'm in RBC, I'd see that, but I wouldn't necessarily add it all together to see what it all is. I'll just kind of sheepishly look at it as I'm trying to avoid it. Bring it all together, look at it for what it is, because if you don't see it fully, you're not even going to be able to acknowledge how high the mountain is that you need to overcome. And look for those accounts, like look for the low rate. I think right now MBNA is an online bank that offers that credit card transfer. Tangerine also has a MasterCard that offers that credit transfer. BMO has it every so often. Those are 3 Canadian banks that have it. I know City Financial in the States also offers that credit transfer. Look for that. And if you have good credit and you can also get a line of credit with a really low interest rate, also look for that. You know, try to get your money to the path of least interest, and whatever is still stuck in the high interest space, pay that off first. Because especially with adding a new credit card, I remember MBNA only gave me like 4,500. Yeah. Even though my credit's good, but they're new, they have no rapport with me. They're not going to give me a lot. I moved all of that. Like I maxed it, because if I'm paying 0 interest on 4,500, that is a lot of money to not have to worry about. Even if I'm just chucking in $20 a month into there and I can move like maybe 300 into something else, you know? So find it and be honest with yourself. Until you're honest and you acknowledge, then you can move all the things that you've swept under the rug, look at it for what it is and start like chipping away at it. Because at the end of the day, it's dollar by dollar, but consistency compounded over time will get you to where you want to be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And in terms of getting the credit too, like what space in between getting each card did you do it? Like, because from talking to a lot of financial people, they say if you're getting credit after credit, it can look bad on your credit report. So I'm curious to understand how you cultivated it to like get multiple cards within like a period of time? Like, was it under 1 year? Was it a year and a half? Like, what was like your strategy behind that?
Actually, luckily enough, the only one that I really had to apply for was the MBNA because so as I said, I had my baking business. So because I had my baking business, I had opened a Tangerine account, like just a free checking account with Tangerine because I wanted like my money going to different places. So like my Treats by Toks, whenever you paid it, e-transfer would go into that account. So because I already had that credit history with them, they just pre-approved me for a credit card and a line of credit. My RBC is what I've been with since I was like 13 years old or like 14 years old when I got my first job at Wonderland. So they already approved me for a credit card. So that's what I was using. Then when I started working at BMO, you have to get a card, an account, because they're not going to pay your direct deposit into another bank's account. So because I was working with them, they offered me the credit card. So for me, the only one I applied for was the MBNA when they sent like a letter. Like I think it was when they were fairly new and they were just trying to get people on. So they're like, oh, balance transfer, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, sick. Yeah. And then I just got that one. But I wasn't applying for them back to back because they were kind of all available. But when I was like, it's time for me to pay this down and be strategic, what do I have available to me? That's when I started realizing all the tools I already had in my toolbox, but now finally using them effectively.
Nice, nice. Now, you jumped your cost per hour significantly, as we just mentioned, right? Could you walk us through some like tips people could take away from how you were able to do that?
I'd say even if you're somewhere that you don't care to be long term, don't waste the moment that you're there. I believe every single part of our life, every single journey we go through is intended to teach us something. And if you do not take that lesson from that place because you're trying to get to the next place, one, you'll continue to repeat that cycle over and over. And two, when you get to the space you ultimately want to be at, you're not going to have the tools necessary to sustain it. So I knew that maybe my intention wasn't to stay at this spot long, but I'm like, okay, I am directly reporting to my VP. Who gets that opportunity? My role is net new. No one has ever done it before. He hired me because of everything else I do. Like it wasn't a role, luckily, where I had to hide the fact that I had a life outside of it that was actually flourishing and doing some cool things, which is something that a lot of people have to do. And I've also had to do. But I brought up skills and I found gaps in my business and their business that were aligned that could be of benefit to them. Every single thing that I told them that we should add, or every suggestion I made, or every room I asked to be a part of, I made it worth their while to have me there. Strategy is a really big thing that I enjoy doing. And I told my VP, if you have any strategy sessions, anything like that, pull me in. They pulled me into a strategy session. It was just myself, my VP, and a director in there strategizing with this external company on how to build out their inclusion strategy. And then boom, that's something to add to the resume, So speaking up, you have to advocate for yourself. Closed mouths get fed scraps. Eventually you're going to be so hungry that you're going to pick up everything that's left. But if you know what you want and you go in with confidence, and you're going to make those people who are going to put their name on the line for you look good, you're going to get everything you want, So I was like, I'm going to be here. I don't know how long I'm going to be here, but I'm going to make it worth every single moment of the time. And when I leave, they're going to adore me because I'm going to leave a legacy behind. And I'm also going to go away with all the tools required to get me to my next level.
Big gems, big gems. Love that. Now, if you were to say that in a minute or even 30 seconds, how would you phrase that?
Capitalize on the moment that you're in and suck it dry for everything it has for you.
Solid. Now, I love that answer, but at the same time, I'm like, is that a tactical way of increasing your revenue or increasing your cost per hour, right? If I'm charging, X client, right? Was there specific things that you did differently to charge that much,
I think it was the experience and also the fact that I now have executive coaching under my belt with a corporation that is very notable in the country, a top 5 bank in the whole country. And I'm coaching and facilitating the executives and the board members of this bank. Like the social proof of that is undeniable. If you're like, oh, what have you done? How long have you done it? Who have you done it for? It's the who you've done it for that kind of opens that door, right? And that's the importance sometimes of getting a shot, because it's usually one shot that has this ripple effect that will take you into everything else you want to do, right? And being strategic about realizing that, understanding what it is, you know, because a lot of people would have looked at me and thought, why didn't you take the job with $25,000 more? But I'm like, the work I'd be doing here would not be of best fit.
It's going to be like a net loss.
Essentially. And it already is proving to be so, you know, and being able to have the vision to be able to leave money on the table today, because you know what the money you left will gain you in the future. A lot of people can't necessarily do that, you know? So, yeah.
I want to ask you about bringing new clients. Like, are you actively prospecting new clients, or do you have someone reaching out for you? How do you bring in new business?
So, the cool way that I'm bringing in new business right now actually is that when I left the bank, there was another facilitator with us there. And I think this goes to the importance of having not only mentors, but also sponsors, people who will go to bat for you and call your name in rooms where you've never sat or you don't have privilege to be in. And he's been like a gem, and he has been coaching and facilitating for like 16 years, built an amazing business. And from the beginning, when we met, we just got on so well. And he was like, Toks, anything you need, let me know. I will share my whole network with you. And you don't take that lightly, you know? So right now, with the work I'm doing and the experience I have, instead of going out and looking for individual clients, I'm joining forces with coaching companies and consulting companies, not like the big, like EY or Deloitte. These are like smaller boutique firms. And the best part about it is that once I'm on their roster, they work with like the Microsofts, the Nikes, the Googles. And when the project comes up that aligns with my skill set, they give it to me. And then we split the amount however we decide to split it. But instead of me having to go out and hustle, I just have 3 of those that I work with, and it just comes to me.
Yeah.
And for the lifestyle I live and all the other work that I enjoy doing, that's the perfect way to do it, right? It gives me like the time freedom. I don't have to go pushing. And if I create an amazing relationship with the client that I work with, they have the option to potentially have me work with them one-on-one, or maybe if they had like a keynote and I'm like, oh, by the way, I speak, I can then pull and get more and leverage those clients in multiple ways.
Sort of like what Jem Gamble was talking about with, you know, she has an opportunity to get more clients, but it's like, you know what, I'm going to stick to this because I make good money. I can spend time with my family. I can do this. I can do whatever. And if something comes up, I can still go ahead and do it. So it's like having that balance of like approaching a business, which I love.
I don't believe in, I left the 9-to-5 hustle because I didn't want a life with no balance. So why would I now create a life with no balance for myself? It's bad math. It's bad math. And like the money's not worth it. Exactly. It's not worth it. I love to be able to sleep in many days, balance, like do my work, just get it done, hit their deadlines, but do it at a time where I don't feel this pressure to clock in at a certain time. I have time in the morning to work out, to do whatever is important to me, to really like set my intentions for the day and not feel this angst or this rush energy that isn't really conducive, in my opinion, to like my best work.
Yeah. The energy sucks.
It's the worst. It's the worst.
Most definitely. As work was wrapping up, you know, what are some common mistakes that you see entrepreneurs consistently make?
I'd say one is the ego of not being teachable and feeling like you know everything. I take a novice approach to everything. Even something I know, tell me your way of doing it. Maybe I can add more, you know, and not asking for help. Sometimes I feel that some entrepreneurs act like they have like a point to prove so badly that they cut their nose off to spite their face. I ask questions, ask someone to help you. Someone has been there before. Success leaves clues. Ask them. If you don't have like a one-on-one mentor, find some like virtual mentors and people who have done what you've done and see how they've done it. Because do you want to get there eventually, or do you want to get there successfully? And if you want to go by yourself, I'm not saying you won't get there, but when and how long and what's going to be sacrificed on this path to get there. But if you are able to ask people, get those sponsors, get those mentors, you'll get there so much faster than just trying to be like, I gotta go hard by myself. I beg. Like, I'm always like, hey, that thing you're doing, I'm interested. Remember me. And that's how I even got into the opportunities, like the $180 an hour consulting gig that then justified me to have enough knowledge to get the CIBC role, that then justified me to now be able to get paid 4 figures hourly. It was all me asking people to get me into rooms and them having me top of mind because I was so damn thirsty and begging, you know? But when I got into those rooms, I didn't make them look bad. They put their name on the line for me and I killed it every time. And now they'll do it over and over again, you know? So, yeah.
Yeah. You know, as Alex says, we're close to wrapping up. I'll be behooved not to ask you about relationships, because one of the key things that led you to all this is the heartbreak you went through to really launch your career path. So walk us through that transition from like, okay, I'm going to do this for this reason, and it actually not being like the main reason you're actually doing this. Because I found this pretty interesting, like researching about what you've been through. So I want to hear from you like right now.
Yeah. So part of the things that happened in 2019, when I quit my job, my father passed away. I had quit my job, and then also a relationship of 8 years. He was like, yeah, never really in love with you. Don't want to be with you. And I was like, damn, that's crazy. Heartbreak. Like, I can kind of giggle about it now. It was absolutely not funny. That level of trauma coming at you from every single angle is absolutely unbearable. And for quite a while, due to shame, I told nobody that this breakup was happening. Probably, I'd say from January till May, I told no one because of shame, until I had like a mental breakdown in a church parking lot. Like,
which year is January to May?
2019.
2019. Okay,
yes. So like the same time my father passed, I quit my job February 8th. My father passed January 16th. Oh, the breakup happened at the same time as well. So at one point, like that level of sorrow can kind of take you in two directions. It could lead you into like the deepest, darkest depression. But I kind of took it in the other direction of like anger, rage, and being like, I'm going to be successful. So it can be a giant middle finger to you. And for a season that worked, right? There was a point where I was like journaling and telling God, like, yo, God, I think this is enough. I think whatever the lesson is, I think I've got it. This pain is unbearable. And I like heard this voice in my spirit that said, if you take all the energy that you put into him and put it into yourself, I'll make you great. And I was like, bet. So that's essentially what I did. And for a very long time, I'd say probably until middle of 2020, if not longer, a lot of my motivation for success was to prove him wrong. And I learned that that can be fuel for a season, but that type of fuel will burn you alive if it's what motivates you long term. Because I would constantly have to remember to be angry at you to push me towards my destiny. And that's not peace. That's not what peace looks like. So I had to really get to a place of, for that season of trying to deal with trauma, it was the only fuel necessary. But as I've gotten over it, forgave, healed, I'm now at a place where I do this because it's my purpose. It's my destiny. It's what I feel most compelled to do. And it feels most right. But at that time, it had to be on some anger. I want to pull up in a Benz and have you be like, oh, shoot, because he didn't believe in me and all of that kind of stuff. So I was like, for you to like look at me and just like kind of write me off, I'm going to show you why you need to regret that for the rest of your life. But now I'm like, I don't even care. If you see me, if you know what I'm doing, all the best. And if you don't, all the best. Like, that's not the fuel, because that's not sustainable. Now it's just purpose, passion, and helping people and sharing my journey.
What got you there?
Yeah.
I'd say honestly, like my walk with Christ, reading the Bible, studying, and just also deciding that peace is a better feeling. I don't want to be angry. I don't want to see someone and feel like rage or fire. Like when I'm at peace, I'm so much more productive. I'm so clear-headed. Like anger is it can be good because it propels passion, but it can also be extremely blinding and distracting, and it kind of swallows up everything in the room. Whereas now, and it's also rooted in fear, right? Like everything I was doing was like, I'm scared that if I don't become this, maybe he was right. Like, although I couldn't necessarily vocalize it at the time, that's what it is, right? You said this about me and I'm afraid that you're right. So now I'm going to prove to you that you're wrong by going so hard that I exhaust myself. But now I'm just peaceful. Like it's from the inside out. And I think people notice it as well. And it's just a way better space to be in to do the work I do, because I do quite a bit. And if I'm not balanced, it can be very overwhelming. And I don't want that, because I love everything I do and I don't want to stop any of it. So I make sure that I stay in a place of peace. I covet it so badly. Like anyone who throws me off my piece, you're getting the X. Like I have no room for it at all.
No, I hear that. And I can totally attest to having X anger be a great motivator.
Yo, the best fire.
Well, you come back with that revenge bod, everything like
everything and the money.
Facts. When I was in college, I broke up with an ex, and the revenge bod I got, listen, when they talking about washboard abs,
yo,
listen, that body was on fire.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Anyways,
you should have been on like Love Island or something, bro.
Love Island.
Love Island. You know what I'm saying? That's not
but Toks, like, do you still have that chip on your shoulder? Like, you know, like the revenge of the ex was one, but every great person has like a chip. Like, what is that to you?
As it pertains to dating, or just?
Well, we can touch dating after, but in terms of you achieving your goals, because sometimes you need that extra motivation to keep going. What is that chip on your shoulder? Like, is it to prove it to yourself? Is it to prove it to your dreams? What is that level of like motivation that keeps you going when you feel down?
Yeah. One thing that I always say to myself is that I chose this life. I chose this life. This is not a life that was forced on me. I made these decisions. Therefore, even when it's not easy, it's going to be worthy.
Yeah.
And another one is that I want to die empty. I do not want to get to the end and get to the pearly gates and be like, what are all the things I could have accomplished? And then see all of it and be like, damn, so I really didn't do anything? I think that would break my heart. I just hate underperforming, you know?
Is it a fear of being average?
No, because I don't even compete. It's a fear of not being my best.
Yes.
You know, because people are doing way more than me, making way more money, hitting way more strides than me, but I'm not looking at that. I'm not looking at like the strides that they're making. Essentially, I'm looking at my own, like, who am I? And am I doing the needful in my life? Like, some people will look at what I do and they'll be like, you do too much. Like, I've had people say it to me, like, you better not start another thing, as a joke, but like, not really. It's rooted in something weird. But for me, everything I'm doing, I have the capacity for it because I was made to carry the weight of these loads. So I want to make sure that I reach my full capacity at all times. And when I don't, I feel the gap. I feel like this like unsettled feeling in me, like, oh, I'm not comfortable. Like, I'll do something. I'll be like, there's something about this that I'm not settled about because I'm not doing it to the best of my ability. So that in itself, I think I've become very sensitive to my potential and to what I need to do, that when I'm not doing it, there's this discomfort that I feel that just kind of disgusts me. So I just try to stay away from that.
I feel you. And how you're approaching dating now with like building your business and being as busy as you are?
I have really good work-life balance, but I think more so than that, I'm learning the more I achieve, the more it's getting clear to me the type of person I need in my life. And that clarity makes it easy to kind of weed out the people who don't fit. You know, to live this kind of life too, I'm very ambitious. I'm very driven. I need someone who is going to be an encourager of that. You know, like there are some people who are cheerleaders, but there's a reason why the cheerleader is not the captain of the football team. I need somebody who's going to have my back and help me strategize and do all of that. And a lot of the work I do is giving. So I need someone who can help refill my cup because the work I do is not necessarily going to do that for me. So now I'm starting to see the type of person that I need in my corner. And I'm actually very patient about it now. I used to get real lonely. Yeah. Very, very lonely. Like, oh, you know, it'd be nice to have someone to like
that companionship.
Celebrate the things with, you know, and like, you know, that cute story of, oh, we started from nothing and we grew together. Not going to be my story. You're going to meet me when I already have some stuff. And that's okay now. Back in the day, I'm like, do I want to slow down so I can meet someone? And like the whole concept and fear for women of intimidating men. Any man who's intimidated by me, thank you for weeding yourself out of the roster because you didn't have the capacity to make it to the end anyway, you know? So I'm just really taking my time and I'm very clear on what I want out of life and out of my companion. And I'm not going to settle because I'm not mediocre on my own. So I won't join forces for mediocrity. It's bad math.
You're going to get a top tier guy.
Absolutely.
Top tier status.
Yes, sir.
No, respect.
I'm curious. Like, how do you... Well, I've never really seen like a balance between two entrepreneurship people in a relationship.
Oh, I'm not necessarily a fan. I am okay with a man with a 9-to-5. Have that health benefit for both of us, my love. Get that insurance.
I mean, you can have health benefits too with your job.
But it could be free under him.
Toks Inc. can be.
No, yeah, benefits. I know. But that's still a cost to the business. Oh, like, sure. I'm not one of those people who's like, I need to be with an entrepreneur. I need to be with someone who has vision, not be Simone, someone who has vision and drive. Vision in whatever you're doing, right? Because as we said, entrepreneurship is not for everybody. And some of y'all who are saying, oh, I don't like to work for somebody, so I want to be an entrepreneur. You lack the discipline and you lack the humility. And maybe it's not for you, So I am not one of those, I need you to be an entrepreneur. I just need you to have vision and actively be pursuing and be on fire for your life. Because if we're having conversations and I'm telling you about all the stuff I'm doing with all of this angst and excitement and you're coming at me bored and you're just like, yeah, my day was good, I'm going to feel like I need to start to minimize because I don't want to feel like I'm showing off.
Yeah.
Although I'm not showing off, right? But if like the contrast is way too stark, it's going to start to feel some kind of way to me. So just be on fire for your life. Is this like a dating app?
No. We're tired because it pertains to actually life and entrepreneurship because being an entrepreneur, a lot of people are affected by your decisions. Mm-hmm. And it's refreshing to hear because, a lot of women, especially like women who have businesses, they're go-getters, they're running stuff. They don't want some type of regular dude. You know what I mean? Like a 9-to-5 in today's society would be seen as a regular guy.
How unfortunate.
You know what I'm saying?
How unfortunate.
As a man, your value's proven by what you bring. Mm-hmm. Right? It's not inherent like how sometimes a woman, like, okay, you have beauty, you have everything. Men are attracted to that. Mm-hmm. But as a man, you have to raise your value to see what can you do for me and how like can I use you in a lot of the things, right? So no, I'm just saying it's great to hear that because a lot of women who are like entrepreneur like yourself, they want like, this guy has to be like me or I'm not giving you a shot.
Yeah.
So it's unfortunate. And it's just like the way life is. I don't have a problem with it because I like to compete. So, it just sucks. That's the way it's drawn up. But
I think at the end of the day, people say a lot on the internet, but in real life, much more humble. Like the hypotheticals that people make and the amount of people who statistically fit into these arbitrary boxes that you create and how much access you even have to those people. Mm-hmm. It's a lot. And people are in for an unfortunate rude awakening when you have all of these metrics and it's like 1% of society fits into your bubble and you don't even frequent the spaces that they frequent to even find them.
The thing is, it's like this type of content raises up in the algorithm and it really washes people's minds, especially like young boys and young girls.
Yes.
Like, I saw one clip where the chick was saying that he's like, I don't want a regular dude who works at 9-to-5. I want like a drug dealer or someone who's like making money like real quick, someone who's like flipping. You know what I'm saying? So it's so sensationalized.
Terrifying stuff.
And even like these like quality guys who are making this much money, as you said, how are you going to get access to them? And you're not really like bringing anything to like really match that guy, So
it's a lot. And I think that when you find someone who gets you, a lot of the things that people have in their heads of what's important to them, they fade away because there's like a few foundational things that you need. And when you find them, you start to say, oh, he's not 6'3", but I'm okay. I'm this, I'm that, and it's just important to be open.
Yeah.
Just have vision. That's my thing. You can't not have vision because I will probably suggest a lot of visions for you and that could be emasculating. And another thing that I think I've been noticing more as I make more money and have access to money is that it's also weeding out the men who only bring money. A lot of us, like I'll say us as Nigerian children of immigrants, a lot of our fathers, their role was to be the primary breadwinner. Emotional intelligence and all those things for a lot of people weren't there. Fortunately, I had a father who was very active and present, but a lot of men feel like my ability to bring money is what makes me a man. And if they meet someone who doesn't need their money, it's almost like, what do you need me for? And that is calling people to the table of being more. Be well-rounded, because money is fickle. You could make more money today. A recession pops up and you make less. Now you feel like you have nothing else to offer. That's scary. Like, value is so many things more than just like financial value. I think someone who I'm emotionally attached to, who I know is a safe space, who can be a sounding board, is more important to me than someone who just like can pay the rent.
Yeah. I think what you're alluding to is like someone with that masculine frame in all areas of life.
Yes.
Apart from just being a provider, because part of being a man, it's like you're judged by your ability to provide, right? But what are your other things that you bring out of like your masculine essence?
Yeah. And what do you provide?
What do you provide, right?
A lot of guys feel like they're trapped to their paycheck, you know, and everything what you're just saying is, I was thinking like, welcome to being a guy, you know, like a lot of it's like, if I get fired from my job right now, man, I don't know if my wife will stick around. That's a lot of guys think, you know, and it's really sad to think that they feel trapped, that their job or their paycheck is tied to their intrinsic value, you know.
Unfortunate stuff. Most
definitely. And it's tough for a lot of people because they feel that, you know, without it, they don't know who they are, you know. So it's really important. If you're someone listening right now, make sure you know who you are outside of your job, outside of your business, because it's really important to what you do once that thing ends.
Yeah.
You know, but working towards wrapping up, where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram, on Twitter, and on YouTube under Toks Talks.
Most definitely. If you're listening to this right now, thank you for reaching to the end of it. Really appreciate you. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to this podcast. And leave a comment, you know, either on Spotify or on Apple Music, talking about the podcast is very helpful. You can find us on Instagram at 24/7hustler, on Twitter at 24/7hustlers, and on TikTok at 24/7hustler. Looking forward to chatting with you. With that being said, the hustle is what you can control. So control your grind and control your life. I'm Alex.
And I'm Owen Osinde.
And I'm Toks Ayinla.
Boom. And that's the podcast, y'all.
Have a great week, everyone.